Adi lived in Cholit. How did she get from Yerushalayim to Cholit? That's the answer. And as she always used to tell us, 97% of the time it was Gan Eden, and 3% not so much. So that Shabbat was the not so much. I'm going to read something that a family friend wrote about Adi that captures the essence of Adi. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I've wanted to write about Adi since I learned of her death, but I was afraid it might be presumptuous of me. How could I pay tribute to her life or capture the magnitude of her loss? And yet, I felt compelled to try. From the Israeli media, I learned that Adi lived in Kibbutz Cholit near the Gaza border with her husband Anani and 2 sons, Negev, who at the time was 3 years and 9 months, and Eshel, who was a day short of 6 months. Early on the morning of October 7th, 2023, when missiles rained down on the communities in the Gaza envelope, Adi grabbed her sons and took shelter in their security room. You have to know that where they lived, they had 7 seconds to get into their security room. At some point, probably from the sounds of shooting and screaming outside her house, she must have understood this was not a usual air raid. With a presence of mind and fortitude I cannot even fathom, she called Anani, her husband, who happened to be away from the kibbutz that morning, and asked him to give her a refresher on how to load their rifle. She said she'd speak to him again once it was all over. The reason they had a rifle in the house was because Anani was part of the security squad of the kibbutz, and so they had a rifle in their safe. He that morning had gone on an early morning hike with 30 other friends from the kibbutz. This was something they did once a month. They had a tiyul zricha. They went out to see the sunrise and have breakfast, and they also got caught in the middle of all of this. And Anani, because he knew what to do, managed to save all of those 30 people, to keep them hidden and until the army came to get them. So that's why she was alone in the safe room. When Hamas terrorists entered Adi's home, she fired, killing 1 terrorist, but ultimately succumbing to the gunfire of the others before Negev and Eshel's eyes. The terrorists then took the boys, along with Adi's neighbor Avital, and headed in the direction of Gaza. I don't know if you remember, on the Monday night, 2 days after the war started, on Anderson Cooper, he interviewed Avital. I happened to be in Canada at the time. I was visiting my family in Canada. I hadn't seen them in 4 years because of COVID, and I went 2 days before Yom Kippur, and I was supposed to come back to Israel on October the 8th. So I was still sitting in my sister's kitchen in Ottawa when this Anderson Cooper clip came on, and I just went, that's Negev. I recognized my grandson on the television. So if you remember that, that was a stunt. For some incomprehensible reason, they may have been staging a propaganda or publicity stunt. The terrorists let Avital and the boys go after crossing the border. They did cross the border. They were near Rafiah, and then they let them go. Though Negev had a shrapnel injury to his leg, and Eshel had difficulty breathing from smoke inhalation, Avital shepherded them to safety. The story of Adi's actions under extreme duress give me insight into how quick-thinking and courageous she was, but they don't sum up her life. I learned from the eulogies at the funeral and stories I overheard at the Shiva that Adi attended the Masorti High School in Jerusalem, served in the elite intelligence unit in the army, received a master's degree in chemical engineering from Ben-Gurion University with honors, worked in cybersecurity, danced, played the saxophone, played basketball, and excelled at everything she did. But again, this list of achievements does not encapsulate who Adi was, nor does the following list of adjectives that many use to describe her. Smart, serious, self-disciplined, talented, quiet, modest, sensitive, gentle, strong, independent, non-judgmental, accepting of others. I spoke to Adi's younger brother Asaf. He told me that Adi's friends said she reminded them of Carole King, that she loved music of all kinds, that she didn't drink and eat at the same time, that she and Anani were high school sweethearts, that she had a dog, a German Shepherd mix named Pete, whom she loved and called Pita, that she made her own granola. Adi's friend Dana told me that Adi loved to run and ran on the road that encircled the kibbutz, that she knew she'd marry Anani when he traveled 3.5 hours each way from his army base to visit her for 2 hours in her pre-army academy, that when she found out she was pregnant with Negev, she was afraid that she might be a bad mother, but was, as it turned out, an exceptionally devoted one, that she loved the quiet desert landscape. Dana described her as a Ma'ayan, a spring of water, quiet and deep, with hidden and surprising corners. When I asked Dana if there was anything in particular that lingered in her memories of Adi, she said, her eyes, their loving, joyful expression. I searched for more descriptions of Adi, scrolling through the Facebook pages of her family and friends. I contemplated calling her husband Anani and her sisters Ayala and Liat, but at some point I stopped. I understood I couldn't capture Adi in 500 or even 700 words. I couldn't even capture one of her hidden, surprising corners. All I can hope to convey is that Adi was extraordinary, that her life was full and rich and bursting with promise, that she was precious, like her name, which means jewel, that she loved and was loved, and that her death has left a gaping hole in the hearts of everyone who knew her. Before Yaron tells the story of what happened on Cholit, because he was there that day, he was a guest of Adi for Simchat Torah, I just want to tell you about some of the acts of chesed that people have been doing for us from day one. The most important, not the most important, but the first, was that a very generous man, that's all I can say, offered us the use of his home in the middle of Yerushalayim, a 3-story house, so that both extended families could stay in one place for the whole week of Shiva. None of us knew him. He was just there in the background. He was in the house, and there was nothing that he couldn't or wouldn't do for us that week. On the second day of Shiva, that was probably the busiest day, not just in terms of people that came. We had people coming in from all walks of life, people coming off the street just to come in and say, Hamakom Yenachem, give us a hug, and leave. There was just all the time, tons of people, but on that Monday it was very busy. Negev, at the time, was very into fire trucks. In fact, Adi had told me which fire truck to buy on Amazon to bring home as a present. And Jerusalem firefighters heard about this, and they came on the second day of Shiva with a real fire truck, parked outside, and they called Negev out. They gave him a helmet. They showed him everything that they do with the fire truck: the hoses, the water, the ladders. They put him in the cabin so that he could talk on the loudspeaker. He said, "Am Yisrael Chai." All the neighborhood was outside. While this was going on, inside the house, the chief rabbi of Israel was talking with Yaron and with Anani's father. And on the other side of the wall, in the living room, was a girls' band who was famous 2008, 2009. They didn't last very long. They put out one album They were called Benot Nechama, and Adi loved their music. And our son Asaf had posted on Facebook how much Adi loved Benot Nechama, and her other favorite was Carole King, James Taylor Troubadour. So I don't know how these women heard about it, because they broke up after a year or so, and two became famous solo artists, but they came as a band, and they played their music in the living room. They brought their guitars and played their music. And at one point, Yaron said to the chief rabbi, "There are women singing in that room." And he said, "Okay." He said, "This is your shiva, bakasha." So he didn't leave the house. They kept on talking, and we had our thing in the living room with the singing. And after they sang some of their songs that even I knew, because my kids were like, "How do you know this?" I said, "Because you guys played it enough for me to remember." One of the girls started singing "You've Got a Friend," which was Adi's ultimate. And if you can imagine a room of, for sure, over 100 people, everybody's either singing or humming, tears rolling down the face of everyone. It was a very powerful moment. Music, bichlal, has played a big role in all that's been done for us over the past few months. Songs have been written for Adi, about Adi. One of the poems that one of her friends wrote was used by an Israeli musician who lives here in Jerusalem. He had a project. He took 5 different texts that were written about people who were killed that day. Not things that they wrote themselves, but that someone else wrote about them. He composed music to these 5 texts, but he only sang the words to Adi's text. He gave all the music to choreographers, and then dances were made, and there was a performance of these 5 compositions about 2 months ago, and hopefully he's going to be able to do another one. We have necklaces after you can see up close, and this was something also, some chesed project that for bereaved parents. So Adi's face is on our necklace, so we each have one, and we asked them also to make for Negev and Eshel, so that they'll have something to remember. Someone stopped Yaron on the street a few weeks after the funeral. He was parking, and he stopped him and he said, "Ta Abba Shel Adi, you're Adi's father." And he said, "Yeah, well, I don't know who you are." He said, "On the day of the funeral, this man lives in Beit Shemesh. The main road from Jerusalem to Beit Shemesh was pretty much blocked because there were over 1,000 people at the funeral." This was a week after the war started, so it was before the huge funerals that a lot of the Chayalim have today, the soldiers. But people were parking 3 and 4 kilometers away from the cemetery to get to the funeral, and it was pouring that day, pouring buckets. So a lot of people were standing outside the chapel while we were inside doing the Hespedim. But when we walked outside to walk to the kefer, the sun came out. Adi's just everywhere. She just is. It's all Adi. She loved jazz. I was at a jazz concert at the theater a few weeks ago, and when I would always call her after we saw the concert. I saw the concert to tell her what I heard. And as I was walking in the lobby, there's music playing. What was the song? "You've Got a Friend." It's just all these little things. Every time we talk to a group, except this group, there's always somebody in the group that knows me or knows someone in my family. It's just, Am Yisrael is like this. So one of the things that, we can show you on this, but this is actually what happened. Someone in Canada, in Ottawa, they were feeling like helpless. What can they do to help? That's the thing. Everybody wants to know, what can they do to help? So he called me. I don't know him. said, we want to make something about a deed. So they designed this head of a, you see it's a head of a lioness? And here, is the face of a woman, it says a D in Hebrew. It says Halivia, the lioness, because she did fight to save her kids. She killed a terrorist. Negev says that the terrorists tried to shoot Eshel, and Ima wouldn't let them. So she did her best. She did her best. And then this is from Bar 2324 in Levi Yakum. So they sell them in North America, only in North America, not in Israel. Shirts, sweatshirts, hoodies, whatever. So I'm just saying, everybody's thinking of something else that they can do to help us. So just know that there are lots of things that can be done, are done. 2 days ago, a young girl who's studying in the music academy here in Jerusalem asked me if she can compose music.